Hi there, viewers. Today, I'm joining a conversation with author Marty M. Alston, the author of the memoir that I previously reviewed. I am a man. When it isn't your fault, rise, recover, and leave. It's a pleasure to have Mr. Marty on the show. Welcome on the show, Marty.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. Good evening from Nigeria, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me again. Thank you.
Yeah. Marty, you've written a memoir, I'm a Man, when it isn't your fault, rise, recover, and leave. I'd love you to tell us about your experience with a narcissistic woman. How does it feel to live with a narcissistic woman?
Well, Peter, if you're not aware of the disorder, um, it nearly you nearly lose your mind and you become insane, if you will, if
Oh,
you've never not aware of this being in existence like I was. Because if I had known that this individual had this problem, I would never allowed myself to be in it and then on to be in it as long as I was. Considering that I've already went through a traumatic experience when I was when I was married, and then to go through something like this, um, it's just really something to deal with.
wow. Wow. It's quite, intriguing to know about that. There's a section in your book, that's the author's note section in your book, when you wrote of how you were being beaten by your ex-wife brother. Could you tell us how does this make you feel?
Well, when that occurrence happened, I didn't want to be, uh, I no longer wanted to be married anymore. And my, I come from, I don't have a close family. It's just me. I'm an only child.
Oh,
And she figured, well, I'm just going to have my brother, ambush me in her mind. That's what the mind frame was. And I was trying to leave, and she called him on me, and he beat me. He got me real good, to the point to where I had to spend time in the hospital.
wow.
Uh, some people were mad at me because you should have pressed charges. Why did I just wanted to leave? I just wanted to leave, and I didn't want to go through the back and forth court battle. And this was from someone that I was married to. And see, a lot of times, in cases like this, family should never be involved, because even after that, going through the divorce and everything, she started stalking me.
Wow.
So I mean, it from a man's perspective, when a woman stalk, it's more dangerous. It seems my experience is more dangerous, because they're more clever, they're more mischievous. When she was stalking me, she would come to my job. She found out where I lived, my new residence. It scared me.
Wow.
It literally scared me. And I have never been through anything like that, of being stalked and followed and uh, that kind of nature.
Wow. Well, that's actually quite an experience. It's hard to hear about that. Another section that caught me at while I read through your book, I'm a Man,
Yes.
it's the section where your mother died,
Yes.
and she couldn't even empathize and everything. You know, Tell us about your mother's death, how it affected you, and how your ex-girlfriend's lack of compassion and sympathy to you at this point affected you and your relationship with her.
Um, it was December 2004. I'm sorry, it was December 2009,
Okay.
December, on a Friday afternoon. I will never forget. I
Wow.
received a call around 2:30 in the afternoon from my job stating that my mother was found dead. Um, I immediately left my job and I went to the young lady's job, my ex-girlfriend's job, and I left a note on her car and I kept going. And while I was going to coroner, I was headed to my mother's residence. And then I received a call stating the police had shut her residence down because people had found out that she had a son. So I had relatives that were trying to go behind my back and get in her apartment and do some mischievous, nasty things.
Wow.
And the police asked, well, does she have any children? She goes, and someone slipped up and said, well, she has a son. And they immediately shut the place down so no one could go into her place or anything.
Wow.
And told me to go to the coroner's office. So I got to the coroner's office and they asked me in the lobby, they said, are you here? Are you here with someone? And I said, no, I'm here by myself. And that's when they began to read the ledger of the occurrences of what happened to my mother. Fast forward, I left that evening, I went home and I just cried like a baby. The young lady never reached out to me. I called and left messages. She never reached out. She never responded to me. And fast forward the day of the funeral, I drove myself. I had a white Cadillac, and my mother's hearse was white, so white and white. I drove myself to the young lady's. I went to the young lady's apartment. She wouldn't open the door, and I went on to my mother's funeral. I drove myself to my mother's
That's
funeral,
terrible.
and I'm literally walking down the aisle as the family, as we were processioning down the aisle. I just wanted to lose it. I wanted to go crazy. I was never able to see my mother for the last time because she wasn't viewable. So I never got to saw her for the last time. So there's no closure with that. I was her only child, and I sung at her funeral. I went, after we left the mortuary, I went back later that evening and I cried on my mother's grave. And then I went on home. Still, I didn't get no call. I didn't get nothing. So fast forward, and you couldn't hear a pin drop. I spoke. They gave me opportunity to speak, and I spoke, and some of the members at the church were saying, "Well, where is the young lady?" And I just verbally told them openly. I said, "Well, she left me. We're not together anymore." And everybody was stunned because they couldn't believe that she would do something like that. And people they couldn't say anything. They didn't know what to say. It was mixed emotions because some people at the church, they were laughing at me. They were talking about, and I was dealing with a lot. And I was alone, understand. I didn't have no support group or anyone walking me through this. People literally saw me go through this and didn't
bother
to hug me. I mean, it's not my problem. That's his situation. Let him figure it out the best way he can, if he will. Then, Monday came. So I still trying to get a hold of this young lady now. And I finally caught up with her at her job in the parking lot, and I had my mother's obituary in my hand. And when she saw me, she reluctantly approached me, and I said to her, "I really needed you by my side." And her response was, "Well, we're not together anymore, and there's no need for me to show you any compassion." And she left me standing there with my mother's obituary in my hand while she drove off from the parking lot.
Even if, well, I'm sorry to say this, even if but two people are not together anymore, that shouldn't take away, compassion, at least sympathy, at least comfort, at least, being able to express the human feeling and show the human aspect of you, even though you're not, even if it were to be a stranger that you don't know, and you hear that, oh, a stranger told you that I just lost my mom, you'll be like, oh, I'm sorry about it. At least that's a stranger, not to talk of someone you've been in a relationship with, together with, and because the fact that we're not together anymore, it now feels somewhat nonchalant. It's When I actually read that part, it actually caught me, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, what human being, actually does that and react that way? It's quite weird and quite unbelievable of a human being.
I've 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 been doing a lot of crying up until this point. I cried this morning because I knew that this was happening with this interview. Um, and it's been 13 years and
Oh,
I'm affected by it.
oh,
Um, because I went through two things at the same time and I haven't gotten closure from neither one of them.
wow.
And I've seen my ex-girlfriend. We've crossed paths since we've talked the last time, Peter. We've crossed paths and it's still the same. No sympathy, no remorse, and can't even look me in my face. Uh, the last time I saw her a month ago,
Mm,
um, she avoids me. She runs from me. And I asked a friend of mine, I said, what is this? She said, what is it that when she sees me, she got to run and get away? And they said, that's guilt.
absolutely. Yeah.
That's guilt, Marty.
Mm.
That's something. She can't. She know what she's done to you,
It's not good. Yeah, I
and
understand.
she doesn't want. And then the thing is, she smeared your name to people in her smear campaign so bad against you, to where she has to continue to keep this image up. You see. And even in that, Peter, she smeared my name to people who don't know me. I had one individual who don't, one of her girlfriends jumped up in my face, don't know me now. I'm a stranger. And people need to be very careful when someone tells you something about someone, you need to make sure the worst thing you could do is get involved, number one. You should never get involved, period.
Absolutely.
How well, because you don't know what you're being told is you don't know what you're being told.
Absolutely. Even it's either
Right.
true or wrong.
Right. You
So,
don't either you don't get involved
absolutely.
because with my ex-wife, she had her brother jump me, but then she turned around and kept stalking me and thinking that was going to make me stay. Why would you think that would make me stay? After you done had someone, that's murder. When you seek someone out to cause someone harm, that's murder. That's aiding and abetting. It's a legal term.
Mm.
So, that's kind of dangerous. And then when my ex-girlfriend, allowed her girlfriend to jump up in my face who don't know me, that's assault. You don't know me. And it's really the thing that's really upsetting about the whole thing, Peter, is that people, as crazy as it is, people have been protecting her in the midst of her, I said the truth is not being told. The purpose of me writing this is because I'm the only one that knows the truth and is going to have to put it out there. I have nothing to lose. I have nothing to lose. So I'm putting this out here because I want to help people, especially men who have been in this circumstance, because we're always looked at it. We're the bad person. We always seem like we're the abusers. We're this, we're that, we're the cheaters. And that's not always the case.
Absolutely.
The truth has never been told,
Yeah.
and this is not to bash women, but it's just the truth. They have the justice system on their side. You say stalk, you say rape, he's following me. That's an immediate protection. How often do you hear a man says, well, I'm being stalked? You know how funny and strange that is? Like I was. I'm being followed. You know how strange that is coming from a man that a woman is following him and stalking him? You know how certain it's not even that don't even sound normal.
Absolutely. Wow. Wow.
If I was to report that to the police, well, something is wrong with you. What did you do? But when a woman does it, oh well, let's go ahead and let's go get him. Let's get a warrant.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I understand. I think you hear people talk about feminism. People that talk about, the reality that both male and female should be treated equally. But I feel that there's some certain aspect of this life occurrence whereby when a man kind of have a certain complaints of like, are you serious what you're talking about? Like they tend to look at you as being, how will I put it? You don't have the power. You're like less of a man, like you mentioned. And this want to make me move into my next question because of our time. I read in a certain part of your book where you wrote that our people make you feel less of a man. And I was going to ask you if you can share with us some part or some of the experiences that made you, felt this way.
Well, I had instances where people like, I've had women hang around me that I was interested in. They didn't like me.
Yeah.
They played the game enough to have me to where they pretended that they liked me, but in the midst of I'm taking them out to eat, I'm spending time with them.
Mm.
They're and I'm not aware of it. And then their girlfriends will say, "Well, what's up with you and what's up with you and Marty?" Girl, I'm just playing with him. He's just a toy that I'm playing with.
Hmm.
And they're like, "What do you mean? I'm just playing with him. He taking me out. He putting gas in my car. He keeping my car washed. I'm just playing with him. Nothing serious. Just a little toy that I'm playing with."
Wow.
Well, he's handsome. He ain't all that. He all right, but I ain't gonna give him handsome. He all right.
Wow. Wow. That's quite of an experience. That's quite I don't know if you'd love to share some other things. I'm sorry to cut you off there. Also, Marty, reading through your story, I would love to hear your opinion about marriage. Do you think a marriage should still hold, despite that both partners have some unresolved issues? When I mean unresolved issue, I mean instances like the position of frequent fight, disagreement, and inequalities between both partners. Do you think that a marriage should exist, despite the fact that both partners still have some unresolved issues?
You have to respect each other. You have to respect one another,
Okay.
be loyal to one another. Um, when you love someone, you're not going to, there's a difference. You're not going to treat the person that you love like a normal person. There's a soul tie, there's a soul connection there.
Yeah, it's a commitment.
Even if you slip up and say, "Oh, I gotta go say I'm sorry." Do you know a lot of marriages and relationships break up because people don't want to take accountability for what they do wrong? They feel that they can just say whatever, get along to get along, don't want to create waves. No, you need to address the wound, as I said before. In order for a wound to heal, you got to put some dressing on it. So I do believe love is a beautiful thing. Marriage is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
When there's committed, when there's two parties committed to each other fully, I shouldn't have to be worried about, are you talking to someone else behind my back? And what are you saying behind my back to your mother, to your friends? What is the conversation, the hidden conversation that is being said? Are you happy? Because people know when you're happy or not.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I also I've always believed that in narcissism, it's kind of a personality, character, behavior. I think I've always believed that this is a trait that is common and predominant among men because I've read quite a lot of books about narcissistic personality disorder, and that's always been to the fault of the man, to the fault of the man, to the fault of the man, excluding the women. Now, how can you prove me wrong? Is it true that we have narcissistic women on the same level that we have it among men, or it's in some other gender more predominant than the other ones?
I would say true, but women have more of an edge than men because they got so much on their side. As I've said earlier, they got the justice system. Understand? They got all of this. And let me give you a quick scenario.
Okay.
In the beginning of the relationship, it's beautiful. Girl gets pregnant. They break
That's how it
up.
has always been.
The first
Thank you.
thing she's going to do is put you on child support and make you their bitch for the next 18 years. And you still can't get away. Not only that, she's going to take you to court. All right? You're going to try to fight for visitation rights to see your child. In the midst of the child's upbringing, the mother's going to brainwash the child against you to where they don't feel that you love them. Understand? And then they're going to use the child as a pawn to keep tabs on you to see what you're doing with the next person that you're involved with. So for 18 years, you can't get away from the person that you once was in a relationship with.
That's outrightly complicated. And even the further you mentioned that at the beginning, in all of these things, you won't perceive it in the beginning side. And that's one of the things that I've been so much concerned about. I don't know why people who profess that they love each other at the very start of the relationship could, all of a sudden turn to be, crucial and cruel enemies. I don't know why. I've always been thinking about it myself, particularly. I've been thinking about the reality, why friendship ends, why relationship ends, why people who once confess with their mouth to your face that they love you wholeheartedly and they can even die for you could just wake up all of a sudden and suddenly turn their backs against you and said, "Oh, I don't like you anymore. I don't love you anymore." Start speaking evil of you, start backbiting, start saying terrible things about it. I think this all will have to do with the nature of the human person because it's something that I've not really got to know the source of why human beings behave this way. You're once so close and all of a sudden you just turn your back and just turn to something different. It's quite sad. It's quite very sad.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it goes back to accountability.
Hmm.
Nobody doesn't like to admit when they're wrong or say, I'm sorry. I don't know why when you say I'm sorry, it's not taken away from you.
Absolutely. It's just a
It's
word.
not taken away from you. You're freeing yourself. You acknowledging that you made a mistake.
Absolutely.
What people, they don't want to acknowledge. Narcissism and racism are twins. And that's why the narcissism abuse. Narcissism and racism are twins. And I
Wow.
say because it's privileged behavior.
Hmm. Privileged behavior. Wow. Thank you for that, Marty. Now, I also want to ask you, what sort of advice do you have for single ones out there who are yet to get married? As someone who has had a tough time enduring a narcissist, what best advice can you give out considering your experience with love? What best advice can you give out people who are yet to get married out there?
Take your time.
Time.
Take your time. Be aware of the individual, not to the point to where you are extremely cautious on everything, but pay attention. Watch if they see, watch if they take you around their friends, watch if they take you around their family. Pay attention to the conversations. If they do take you around their relatives and their parents, watch how they interact with their parents. Watch how the parents interact with you. If they're distant, if they're social, you gotta be aware. And then after 3 months, sit down and have a conversation. Where is this going? Where do you want to go? And then, check them on some things because as a man, we have it hard because, we got to go around the parents and then they looking us over, checking us over and being asked all these kind of intrusive questions and everything. And, making us feel that if we're worthy enough to date their daughter, if we're worthy enough to marry their daughter, And with my ex-girlfriend, I only met her parents one time out of 5 years that we were together. Only met them one time. So they knew about me before they even met me in a negative way because of what she told them about me. Understand? So, and another thing, we're so quick to believe what our children tell us. And a lot of times too, and parents, I know parents may not want to hear this, but a lot of times kids be lying. You lying. Well, that's my daughter. That's my brother. But you're lying. You believe in false truths.
Now, I want to ask you another question, and that's how does your background as a minister, because I read your minister in church in the book, how does your background as a minister affect your choice of women, and how does it influence your coping mechanism while enduring a narcissistic relationship?
Well, I'm at,
I know it might be very hard.
well,
As a minister in church. That's one of the reasons why I had that, and I was going to ask him because ministers are meant to be a role model, an example to other people out there, and sometimes they often think about their choice of decision and often consider what people would say, what the followers would say, even as they are being seen as an example in the church. So I want to ask you, how does your background as a minister affect in you coping with all of the things you passed through?
Well, being that, when I went through this situation with this young lady
Yeah.
13 years ago, it was open. See, it wasn't a private matter. It was an open matter because people knew that we were together.
Okay.
That's the more embarrassing thing because everyone sees everything.
Mm.
And then you have to kind of keep this image up, and then you're not, all these years they haven't seen you with anyone, and you're not with anyone, and then begin to question, well, why you don't have anybody? I mean, I'm still healing, to be honest with you. I'm still healing.
Wow.
And people don't understand narcissism. A narcissistic person is a dangerous person. They're dangerous. And if it's a woman, it's more dangerous because I'm still healing. I'm dealing with the mental abuse, Peter. It's the mental. Because I've seen the individual with other people. That's the hurting thing. And I'm living my life and crossing paths, it hurts me. Because I've always had to figure, well, what was so bad about me? You with another, she's with another man happens to be buff and muscular. I'm not buff and muscular. I'm tall and skinny. Was going to the gym at some point, Peter, to try to build myself up. And I said, I'm not. And, I got tired of doing that because going to the gym, that's discipline. I said, I can't. I got tired. And I said, well, whoever claims that they like me, this is it. This is it. Either you like me or you don't. But back to your question, I'm more guarded and rigid now than ever before. Like if a woman says, you look nice today, I'm already saying to myself, what do you want? You're very handsome. Okay, what is it that you want? I'm saying that in my mind. Okay, well, I get kind of nervous a little bit.
Okay. Thank you for answering that. Now, Marty, please tell us about divorce. At what point in time do you think it should be practiced, utilized, and should it ever be encouraged considering the current state of marriage in a contemporary time?
I feel divorce is only marriage when everything has been exhausted. And by any means, when there's physical abuse, I'm not an advocate of physical abuse, whether it be male or female. I don't care what it is. Get out. Any type of abusive relationship, get out as safely as possible and as quickly as possible. You know, and even infidelity, you know, some people could work it through, and some people can't. I mean, I've dealt with it in a matter of when I was with the young lady, you know, the cheating, and still stayed, and then I still got burnt because she went back to her ex on her job. And even now, the person that she left me for, they're not living together. She then moved on to someone else. So you have to know what's best for you. You have to know what's best for you. I would not recommend anyone being in something where they're not being respected, they're not being treated with love and dignity at all.
Oh, thank you very much for that. Marty, would you love to read a part of your book, like a paragraph or something? That would be great if you have any part you love to read.
Yes, I would like to read the, as I begin, people have gone out of their way to discredit me when it doesn't fit their lie. They have literally laughed at, scoffed at, and mocked my pain, posed unfounded opinions, and created narratives about experiences that they were not there for. They have created false fairy tales in their minds and then built entire empires of lies around those fairy tales to give them life. People have disrespected me and endlessly treated me as though I didn't exist. It is disheartening to say the least, but God is the ultimate vindicator.
Well, I love that. I love that. And that's part of the author section is quite pulling. I had some lines that are underlined there. And it is also in the same section that I was able to pull up the excerpt of my review. While I mentioned that I felt I had no purpose. I spent my years, days, hours, and minutes alone, and no one noticed I wasn't present. It was as if I had ceased to exist. I became suicidal without hope. Looks the level at which dealing with someone can actually pull one to. And it's very best avoided that we should avoid anything that would put us in such kind of situation. So Marty, could you please tell us how we can get a copy of your book? Where viewers can get a copy of the book? Could you mention any part it's available on?
It's available right now on Amazon. The quickest way, you could order the paperback and the Kindle version today on Amazon. You can also go to Barnes and Nobles and smashwords.com. You can check out those 3 outlets.
And yes, I left a link in the description part of this interview for viewers who would love to get a copy of I Am a Man. When It Isn't Your Fault, Rise, Recover, and Live. It's a fantastic memoir that details, Marty's experience with a narcissist, ex-wife. And it's quite amazing as you've watched us, have a conversation with Marty, and he has been able to share some part of the story. But for you to have a full understanding of the book, I'd advise that you get a copy directly on Amazon, and I've left a link in the description part of this interview. So thank you so much, Marty, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.